if it's supposed to sound like that or not.
And good evening, and welcome to the Dusty Feet. If you're hearing an echo on here and I'm not, I don't know why, but it's not. What do you think it is? But welcome to the Dusty Feet. There you go. So, okay, that's weird. Interesting. I'm hearing the show echoed back in my own headset, and I don't know why. So I will try not to concentrate and ignore to what I was or was not hearing. So there you go. And don't know why. I'll figure it out later. That's fun. So, welcome to the Dusty Feet. Forget the updates on Twitter. All the previous episodes are on TheDustyFeet.com. Any information that you need and things that are coming up, new episodes and those kind of deals. So we are in, by this purple border, is now going to be our special guest series. We're going to have some fun doing the special guest series. And so tonight, you can see we're segueing off of last two weeks ago on the Matthew series, that Jesus, Truth, and Spin. And with that, I mentioned that I'd like to bring Wilbe Wilson onto the show to talk about. And he agreed, and I'm tickled pink. I'm so excited. So so we have him on the show. So, and as always on the Dusty Feet, this is a place where we can safely explore the endless ways of God, the interconnection of His creation, where belief understandings may be challenged, divine misunderstandings may exist, and traditional teachings might falter as we pursue connection, context, and community with God and each other here in an environment of grace and love. So here we go on the Dusty Feet. And there he is on this echoey stuff. Strange. So, welcome. I'm hearing all kinds of crazy things. I hope it's not showing up on the stream, and you're saying it's not. So
I don't
that's
hear
good,
anything.
because it'd be interesting to see. So,
It's quiet down here in the basement.
okay, it's weird on my end. So we'll just go. So welcome to the show.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you for being here.
Good,
And for
it's
those
good to be here.
that have seen before and don't know you personally, it's he's been on the show as Tommy Wilson, and we're going to get into the Wilbe side because that's an important part of the story. But you're going to see Wilbe Wilson here on this. Now we're segueing off of the last episode we have with the Matthew series, Jesus, Truth, and Spin. And with that, what we want to do is we want to start and play that last clip we had of Mackie talking, and it kind of will, as we like to coin the phrase, sheep leap off of that, and use it to segue into what we want to talk about, and then Wilby will get to share his story and some thoughts that he has on Mackie at this point, and I want us to hear. So I think it's really great. So with that, let's do this. So here we go with that last clip from Mackie.
And and so I don't actually think this is one of those Sundays where you're like, I'm doing good on this one, because like I haven't sworn an oath recently, This is obviously much, much, much deeper. It's way deeper. So why do we do this? Like, what kind of inner transformation does it take to get to a place where my presentation of myself and my purposes is just simple and honest? I don't feel the need to create the smoke screen. How do I get there? How does anyone get there. And it seems to me that that's what Jesus is trying to get us to reflect on with this last line here. What kind of person does it take, or what kind of person do I need to become so that I can not feel the need to hide from you with my words? So that my yes is my words are truly correspond to who I really am, and I don't feel the need to cover it up. And actually, I think it's that verbal cover-up that Jesus exposes here that I think really gets to the issue. Is that somehow with words, with just blabbing or talking or using Jesus language or name-dropping or other people, what we're doing is we're hiding from each other. We're hiding the truth about who we are. And what is that truth? And I think it's the same truth that some of you learned about the playground bully, in grade school. And they're just a jerk. They're just such a jerk and oppressive. They steal your milk money or something like that. People don't have milk money anymore. Maybe they do. I don't know. You know what I'm talking about. Anyway, so you have the playground bully, and they're a jerk and you don't like them. But some of us, somewhere along the way, they stayed in school alongside you in high school, and you learned their story. And what you learned was that their life at home was just a wreck, absolute wreck. And overbearing jerk dad who never affirms them if he's around at all, and tense, anxious mom, and so on. And so what your playground bully is actually doing is he's compensating. He's compensating for a deep fear and insecurity that they have. And so how do they compensate? They compensate by either bullying you, controlling, manipulating you, or presenting some version of themselves that isn't actually true, because, dude, if anyone actually knew about what my life is like and the kind of person I really am, no one would want to be my friend. Is fear. Is fear. What is a smokescreen designed to do? It hides. And so it's the tragic irony of human communities, is that we want more than anything to know and to be known by each other, but we're perpetually hiding from each other by how we generate spin around ourselves. And for you, it may not be swearing oaths, it may not be polar bears and children playing in a field, but we all do it. We all know what Jesus is highlighting and exposing right here. And so how do you get around that, right? How do you address your fear of just being totally insignificant and unimportant? That's a deep iceberg, right? How do you address your fear of people actually knowing the real you and the flaws in your character and the parts of your story that you're not proud of? How do you do that? And there's a theme woven throughout the New Testament. There's one passage in particular that I think is the answer or the corresponding passage to what Jesus raises right here. And it's in 1 John chapter 4, but just what it highlights is I just want us to think about who's Jesus and what's he doing? How does Jesus think he's addressing this issue? And remember, what is he doing? He's going around inaugurating and announcing the kingdom. He's throwing these dinner parties and inviting all of the wrong people who have been written off by their religious community, and he just invites them to these banquets where he just celebrates God's grace and forgiveness. Is Jesus making the first move and just moving right into people's worlds and lives and just announcing forgiveness and grace and an invitation to come into the family of Jesus' people. And as the apostles and the disciples later reflected on what Jesus was doing, there is one word woven throughout the entire New Testament that the disciples came to describe what Jesus was doing. And this passage puts it beautifully. John says, "This is how God showed his love among us. He sent his one and only Son into the world that we might live through him." You see, this is love. Not that we loved God, but that he loved us and sent his Son as an atoning sacrifice for our sins. So as the disciples looked back and reflected on their encounters with Jesus as he inaugurated the kingdom, the word they used to describe everything about Jesus and what he did was love. Jesus was God's love among us. Jesus was God's love that went and found people who were hiding and distorted and screwed up human beings like we all are, and just made this ridiculous offer, right? that Jesus' life, lived as a human being full of integrity and truth, is being offered to us just as a free gift, which is what he means when he says that we might live through him. Somehow, in John's conception, as we go around hiding through smoke screens from each other, we're living dead people because we don't want to be known, we're scared of being known, we don't ever let people in, we don't actually have relationships where we let anybody in, and John calls that a form of living death. You're living, but you're not really living for what God made you for. And so Jesus comes as this human who actually is that kind of human, and he begins an association of people who he's beginning to remake and heal that part of them. And so we live through him. And not only that, is that not that we loved God first, but that in his death, and that was his life, and then his death, he actually covers over all of the huge messes that we make and that we contribute to this world precisely through all of our lying and deception of each other. I mean, the world is what it is because of all of these broken things about us. And so God's purpose is not to just let us go to hell in a handbasket. His whole point is to come among us and actually do something that addresses the core issues inside of us. And his love is just preemptive, unconditional. Like God didn't ask us if he wanted Jesus to come, but he just came among us in Jesus and did this for us. And here's the result. This is later on in the paragraph. And this couple lines here, I commend them to you from many cups of tea and lots of time reflecting on. John says this in conclusion. He says, there is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear. See, fear has to do with punishment. And whoever fears has not yet reached perfection in love. So one of the results in a disciple of Jesus, and when they truly reckon with who Jesus is and see what Jesus is doing as God's love for them, is it diminishes fear. What is it that causes us to hide from each other? Fear of being known, insecurity about my worth and my value, and so on. And there's something John says about God's love, which isn't like a mysterious, vaporous cloud out in the universe. God's love is a concrete, real person, Jesus of Nazareth, who did and said these things on our behalf, if you're willing to accept that. And in that act of love, it's God's permanent commitment to us, despite our deepest flaws and sins and failures, that he's committed to us, and that he sees value and worth in us as divine image-bearing humans, and that we're full of all this remarkable capacity and potential that we're just totally have distorted. And so he's here to redeem that, literally. And to begin to believe that about yourself. I know this is like theology or whatever, so just stop. Do you actually believe that about yourself? Right? There are things that you've never let anybody know about, like secrets or stupid things that you've done, or things that you're ashamed of, or things that you're embarrassed of about yourself. Do you really believe that those things do not determine your value or worth? Do you really believe that your Creator, the most important being that exists, has already demonstrated his preemptive, initiating love and grace for you? And John says if you can get that truth deep, deep in your bones and in your mind and in your heart, it eliminates fear. Fear. Because fear has to do with God's actually out to get me. No, Jesus has proved that wrong. Fear has to do with people are constantly evaluating, and what about if what they think about me? And then I'm not significant if those people don't think a certain thing about me. And what seems to me what John's getting at is if you really reckon with who Jesus is, who cares what people think about you? Who actually cares what people think about you? Not in a bad way, but in a healthy way. Because your identity is not determined by what other people think about you. It's determined by this act of Jesus right here. And so it seems to me that the only way to address the deep, huge scope of what's underneath the surface of this iceberg, lying is just the tip. And this verbal smokescreen is just the tip of the iceberg. This is the issue, and it seems to me this is how Jesus moves towards us in it.
Okay. So much to unpack there. And so, okay, start us
Okay.
off.
Okay. Well, I took 2 pages of notes when I listened to this the other the other day, and there were several things that stood out, to me. Um, let's see, where's a good place to start? He said we want to be known by each other, but we are all perpetually hiding from each other, and we generate spin around ourselves.
Right.
I said when I gave my testimony a month or so ago that I could have been the poster child for fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was good at it. And I used to also say the best actors are not in Hollywood.
Well, it's interesting when we do things. Our culture does this. In other words, we put spin on everything. Like Mackie talks about, the commercials that we have and those kind of deals. It's ingrained in our culture. It's insidious. It's hooked in, and us realizing that we need to shift from that, and is hard. That brings a lot of things to think about. So
We're so good at it. We earn doctorates in it.
yeah, yeah,
Spin
yeah.
doctors.
Doctorate's in the wrong thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
But when he started getting towards the end and talking about love is the key to eliminating fear, because underlying this is fear. I had a spirit of fear in my life for a long time.
yeah,
I had a spirit of rejection in my life, probably since the womb. You know, my father left and abandoned our family when I was a year old. So at least from that point, I believe anyway, I had a spirit of fear and rejection on me. Now, some things happened to me when I was in school, where in the classroom, I'll just say this one, I was in the classroom in the 5th grade,
yeah.
and I was daydreaming out of the window. And the teacher just called me out and said, "Tommy, would you like to tell?" They called me Tommy back then, not Wilbe. Okay, so Tommy, would you like to tell the class what you're dreaming about? And I mean, it just
Yeah.
I'm looking around, and the whole class just burst out in laughter. So from that point on, I had a spirit of laughter that followed me. I used to think when people were over here laughing, somehow I was wondering if they were laughing at
Laughing
me.
at me.
I mean,
Yeah.
that happened all the time. Well, as you grow older and you go through things, you learn to cope with it. God's given us, I believe, a coping mechanism.
Adult
You know,
coping mechanism, or a child's
yeah,
mechanism that
right.
evolves into adult coping mechanism.
But it still was affecting me in some ways.
Yeah,
It did, because I wouldn't open up to only to a certain point, only with my wife, but I didn't go to places with, things that I've done, and, the person that I am. I just didn't go there. It was the fear, and, I just didn't want to experience those feelings again in a deeper way. So that would always hold me back. But see, Mackie, what stood out to me in this was at the end when he really brought out, what is it? What do you really care what anybody else thinks if you know that our God loves you and you know what your identity is? You
right,
you understand what that is, and you believe it,
right.
and you accept it, and you receive it. And I think I was at that place, even though, boy, I just did not want to give my testimony and go to those
Yeah.
deeper places. But that was the key that helped me to do it.
Well,
And that's what stood out to me in Mackie's little teaching here. So,
we have this we're that fear we have of rejection, right? And not being part of the deal. And so, like, I knew part of your story. I knew your story, but obviously it wasn't for the masses, and it wasn't there for them. It wasn't for me to share your story. It's for you to share your story, and that acceptance rejection game that we have the issues with, and it carries over from. It's easy to have. We're old. You and I are both over 60. Okay.
Speak for yourself. Yeah, I'm over 60,
There
but
you
I'm
go.
not old yet.
You're not old. So
I'm older,
but
Rob.
it's hard to teach the lesson that it doesn't matter to somebody that's young. So I'll use youth and I'll use immature. Let's do that. That's a two-sided, because as you get older, that means you're mature. Okay. And that point of, do you think it's important? Do you think it matters? And the reality is it doesn't. I remember talking to my girls, a prom dress that they wanted at one point, and it was like $400. And I'm like, I don't know what planet you're living on, but it's not the one where this guy's paying $400 for a prom dress you're going to wear one night, and it's not going to happen. So, and of course they were crushed, end of the world, life was over. Okay, now you can't even get them to describe the dress that they were ready to lose their minds over. And said that it was important. It seemed important at the time, and we exaggerate ourselves as we move forward. So when we have these moments that build, those insidious moments that build, and then we keep making it bigger. It's like we make a mountain out of a molehill, is what it boils down to. I've talked to us about the ripple effect of events, things that happen, things that go, that teacher that said that thing to you back then. In her mind, she's not thinking, what is this going to do to him 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years later, and they're not thinking that thing. The words that leave our lips, what do we think that's going to affect? And that has more damage than we care to admit. And are we willing to really be honest and careful about what we say for this very reason? And there you have it. Yeah.
I would like to think that she realized what she did a little bit later, and felt,
Yeah.
sorry for
But the glass is
or
broken.
whatever.
Now
You
we'll
know,
talk about that
just,
later. But the
yeah,
glass is broken at that point, and the and and how you're going to carry it, and then how you view how the rest of the people are going to take it. The rest of the kids, you're wondering if they're laughing in the hallway. Are they laughing at you? That's the ripple effect that goes beyond what she said. It carries into other areas of our lives. Whatever we say to anybody carries
yep,
into
it
other areas of our
does.
lives.
Right, over and over and over again.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I got to a place where, and this is important too, because the Lord woke me up at 2:30 in the morning, and He woke me up by a scripture verse. And with the scripture verse was a song that came into my mind because because we sang that scripture, and that was like 35 years ago in the old church I used to go to. So I knew it was the Lord that was doing this, and I felt like I needed to write things down that He was telling me. I had a roommate. We were staying in a lodge, at a men's retreat, and I didn't want to wake him up, so I pulled the covers over my head and I grabbed my phone, and I'm trying to type out what the Lord is telling me with one finger under the covers with the light, and I'm just like,
Like a little kid in a
and
movie that's got the tent and
oh my
he's,
God.
yeah.
And it took me 2 hours to write down. And I don't think I even captured everything that the Lord was trying to tell me, but I'm pretty sure I caught the main things.
Right.
And one of the main things was, or if not the main thing, He said, I want you to give, I'll just read it. You are to give your testimony for the purpose of encouraging others to go deeper with me. For there are some who really need to hear it. And there are only a few at this time right now, but there will be more later. Well, I took that immediately as I was to do that there at the retreat, which I was, and I did. But I also gave my testimony again a second time at the Vine Community Church
Mm-hmm.
about 3 weeks later. And I've also sensed that the Lord wants me to do this again whenever the opportunity
Yeah.
arises. Because in doing this, I've already experienced or seen the results of people being set free,
Right.
and this helping people to open up more and to realize that it's okay. It's okay to go there. He loves you. It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks.
Right.
I know who I am in him, no matter what I did in the
Right.
past. And boy, when I think of some of the things I did in the past, it's like, oh my God, how did I do that? But I did it, and I went there, and it really kind of reveals that dark side of us, or that side of us that we don't like. It's icky and it's
Right.
yucky, and we don't want to look at
Yeah.
it. But when you can do that, wow, the freedom and the release and the amazing results
Yeah.
of of what happens when, for me anyway, simply obeying the Lord and
Yeah.
opening up and being vulnerable. The verse that he shared with me, or that he woke me up with, was Galatians chapter 2, verse 20. I've been crucified with Christ, and nevertheless I live, yet not I, but Christ lives in me. And I knew that he was telling me that I, in a small way, needed to be like him and sacrifice myself and be vulnerable for many reasons, to, like he said, to help people go deeper with me, but also to destroy the works of the devil.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's how you, in my mind, and I think scripture backs this up, and Yeshua, Jesus, um, showed that by his death and giving his life, he destroyed the works of the evil one, you know. And so that's the main thing about this is being able to if being able to open up yourself and be vulnerable enough and transparent enough that by doing that, it allows God to work in and through you and in others.
And
And the ripple effects has been amazing. I mean, the people that came up to me, uh, one brother was crying his eyes out. Another brother was just like, well, you have no idea what you just said.
yeah.
And I'm like, okay. And I just listened.
Right.
And it was amazing how it touched people. And so I think, to go back to what Mackie was talking about, just what is it? He asked the question, what is it about, what kind of he said, what kind of person does it take, to get to this place, and to not hide anymore and to open up and be vulnerable enough,
Right.
to be real with each other and communicate so that we can truly love each other and not fake it till we make it anymore, and not, spin everything and so on, you know?
And it's a so the, this is a dynamic that has to have people. In other words, this isn't about going to the beach or to a mountaintop and speaking everything. I mean, because we have that in our head, and I get that. It has to be in an environment where you have people that you can share this with. Part of that release is sharing in community, which is unburden yourself to your brothers and sisters. We get that in Scripture. It has that setup. So how we do that starts in baby steps. Like, for instance, this is a question. That like, for instance, I knew your story. I wasn't the only one that knew your story. Other people that knew little bits and pieces and this kind of stuff, and they'll set up. Does that have any influence on you even after that? Did that go, okay, I told it to some people, and they haven't abandoned me. They haven't looked at me like I got three eyes or something, and they've still stayed in relationship with me. So then I have enough of a little bit of an experience to say, yeah, God, I'm still scared. And he says, go do it to a larger group. So you go to the men's group, and then you have their response, which is emboldens you to say, I can carry this out. But you need to have that in an environment where people are going to do this. Because understand, it's not impossible that you could say that and somebody would have a negative response to it. That's not impossible. But you had this in a safe environment with the group, with the men's group in the Vine. Would you agree? Is there something in that might be a factor in that the people and the people dynamic are important as well?
Absolutely. I mean, I'll go all the way back to when I first opened up to my wife before we got married.
Yeah.
And we went to some places, and it was amazing. And it was like she just opened up the door to a cage that I was in.
Right.
And it was open, and I kind of walked out a little bit, But after I've opened up a little more, and then especially with 26 men in a room, on a men's retreat, and I'm just spilling, some dark secrets and stuff. And the response that I got by the response I got,
Right.
it did embolden me to do it again. And I did it again in front of more people and women and children. I had to adjust it a little bit, but it has freed me even more, and so after I did that, I was telling a few of my friends, I said, well, I'm kind of waiting on the next assignment. If the Lord wants me to do it again, where, when, who, why, I'm ready. I'm open.
Right.
I'm more transparent because I'm free. And by the way, all those spirits
Right.
that I mentioned earlier, they were gone.
Right.
They just left the room after I had done the first time with the men, and opening up. And the love that I felt was incredible. I just had this love that came out of me also, for I could talk about that a lot. I just had so much love coming out of me, and I wanted to express it, and and I still feel that way. What else can I say? Now I will say this, that there was a few days ago, last week ago, week and a half, that I started feeling a little depressed and a little kind of like these things are trying to creep back in. And that's not to be unexpected, it's okay. But I dealt with it,
Right.
and they're gone again,
Yeah.
So it's like, there's a power there. There's this learning curve in a way, to now learn to walk this out and trust the Lord in every step you take,
Yeah.
and learn to listen to His voice, and just be yourself.
Yeah.
I'm
And it's
more just trying to relax and be myself. I don't try not to fake it anymore or be somebody I'm not. I'm just
well, and
trying
that has a whole
it's such a
dynamic to it of quote unquote being ourselves, because maybe on the outside, people looking at it, if they were to look at you every day, would go like, I didn't see a lot of difference in Tommy. And let's just say that they looked at the Tommy, right, and they're not seeing it because this is going on. Your fears are inside of your head. In other words, the stories that we have, those kind of pieces, they kind of go, and that fake it, make it has a certain veneer facade to it,
well,
right?
my wife saw it, brother. When I spoke to her,
Now, those that are close to you see
Yeah,
that. They'll see
yeah,
through it, and they will. They'll see through it. The outside's going to still see. It wasn't like you were a doldrum, draggy, poor pity me, Tommy, before. You weren't, and you weren't with that with anybody else. So but those that were inside that knew you, the
yeah.
Joeys, right, and Dorothy, your
Dorothy said, "I don't know who this man is that
yeah.
just came home, but I like him a lot."
Well, and well, and
So
everybody, those that know you
yeah,
also come alongside you in that statement that they want to be supportive of that and be part of that and the release to go. Those of us that have been in recovery, we have where people come up and they they they're at such the bottom, right? And they finally just blah and say da da da, and everybody in the room says, "Welcome to the club," meaning welcome to life, welcome to the fact that these things happen to people, and they do, and you're okay, and I'm okay with you being okay, and you're okay with me being okay. That kind of thing, and that opportunity to share with the men and do that and get that response, and there people then come to you and say, I've been hiding this. We talked offline before this about the C word, cancer. And when we're in the 60s, and so you didn't talk about it. You didn't talk about these things. Those things were secrets. And your family didn't, and they were just sick. They didn't get those deals. And then those things people started to share and come out. And now you've got 5K runs in every town for some cancer, leukemia, blah, blah, blah. And that's good because they're talking about the fears, those things that separate us, those things that divide us. And they say, and then somebody comes out and says, well, I've survived it and I've survived it. And next thing you know, you find out how many people in your neighborhood have survived breast cancer and you didn't know it. Now you start to talk about it, those fears, that fear of separation, that you're going to push me aside, that you're going to ignore me and do that. And it ends up being the opposite, 100%. And we go, wow, if we were just willing to be brave enough to make the statement. That said, that's still very scary, isn't it? And that's easier said than done. I mean, it's
it
easier to
is
sit on
easier.
this
It
side and
is
say
easier
it.
said than done, and I can sit here now and
Yeah,
say, "Oh," and encourage everybody, go for it,
yeah,
it's okay,
right,
and it is, but
yeah,
everybody has to get there themselves, I think,
right,
and we can encourage them all we want. I used to when it came to, and even though I knew this in my mind, it still was a struggle,
yeah, yeah,
but and this is what I'm talking about. The scripture says that the devil comes as a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. Well, I remember a teacher a long time ago talking about a lion, an old lion that had a roar.
yeah,
That I mean, it would scare the socks off of anybody.
right,
But those old lions, most of them maybe they didn't have any teeth. Okay, so they really couldn't hurt you. There's just the roar.
right,
you know. And so there was a title of a book. It was called Run to the Roar. Don't be afraid
right,
because the enemy is just roaring. And he doesn't have any teeth with any of us,
yeah,
you know, but he's really good. He's really good at deceiving us and making us think that people are laughing at us, that they're going to reject us,
yeah,
that they're going to say bad things, or they're going to go talking to everybody else.
yeah,
And, one of my fears was, okay, if I open up and talk about how um, I did some of these things in my life, then uh, that's the way these people are going to think about me every time I'm in their presence.
right,
And I'm going to just know that I'm going to think and know what they're thinking about me. And I just don't want that. Well, it gets right back to what Mackie was saying. Who cares? Who cares what anybody thinks?
yeah,
And you really have to get to that point. And how do you get to that point? Love is the key. There's no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear. So if we really, if we, like Brad Scott used to say, if we really, 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 really,
Yeah.
really, you know,
Yeah.
believe
Yeah.
what he's telling us, and that he loves us that much, and that he's the one that created us. He's the one that's given us the identity of who we really are. We
Right.
just need to accept that,
Right.
you know, love your neighbor as you love yourself.
Right.
We have to love ourselves, accept ourselves. So long in my life, I wanted to be like other, you know, guys because, or, you know, part of my testimony was that father figures was my idol. I
Right.
idolized fathers.
You
But then
idolized
I
you idolized
idolized
a figure of a
a
father
figure of a father,
because you didn't have a father.
and I took it to some extreme places,
Right.
okay? Because I just wanted a father in my
Right.
life, and I wanted to be like them. I wanted to be strong and masculine and like a man,
Right.
and I never could see it in myself. Never could see it, and I struggled and struggled and struggled all the time, you know. And even though the Lord was telling me certain things about myself, I just had a hard time really believing it. So that's the key.
Well,
That's the key. Believing what God really says about you, accepting who you are, seeing yourself, how He created you, and understanding that, and knowing that in your knower.
yeah, there's
That's the key. And how
well,
you
you
get
have,
there, I don't
but
know
you're
about
like,
anybody
for
else, but
instance,
yeah.
Bible talks about the love of the Father, right? The love of the Father. You get this, and you don't have a model to grasp that. In other words, that's part of the problem that goes, and the longer you carry it, the deeper it goes, right? The longer we carry that baggage and goes with this. But this whole that whole dynamic of I don't even have an image. Like I said, you create this father figure because you're trying to fill the love of a father. Well, I don't have a father, so I don't understand that. I can't. I have a challenge very early. Let's young, immature, don't know, have no experience, and you're trying to stretch this out to figure out how am I going to get there. So as you get down the road, you start filling in squares to things, and I'm not you almost your father figure almost becomes a Picasso, you know, with the faces all of it. You get what in the world is that? And you
I
go,
never thought of
that's my
that.
father figure. I built him up over the last 20 years, you know, and this is what I now have. And
I
you
I could have
go,
made a
yeah,
I could have made a collage with all the images,
yeah,
and it could have
yeah.
been like a painting kind of thing.
We when I was in
But, but
some
here's the key. Here's
someday
something
I'll
else, Bob. Before I forget, okay? Here's something else. It was I didn't feel, okay? I didn't feel it.
right.
We can't trust our feelings. We can't trust our feelings.
Well, we
Mo-
have a balance with that because
Well, most of the
love
time you
is
can't
also a
trust.
feeling. So
I'm
we
talking
have a
about
very challenging
yeah.
balance there.
I'm talking about when it comes to identity.
Okay.
When I didn't feel the identity that I wanted. I didn't feel it.
Okay.
It
Okay.
wasn't there. Okay.
Okay.
But so the Lord told me it was there, told me who I was over and over and over again, but I didn't feel it.
Right.
So therefore, I had a hard time believing it. So we can't, in that sense anyway, trust in our feelings. We have to, no matter how we feel, and I know that's such a difficult thing. I know, but it's we have to get to that place of really believing what the Lord tells us about ourselves,
Right.
and that's what really pushed me to open up, because I was at a place, with the help of my wife and others, that
Right.
encouraged me, of knowing
Right.
who I really am and trusting in that, no matter what the response was going to be,
Right.
you know, and I know it can be scary. I do, but I would just encourage everybody to run to the roar. You know, he doesn't have any teeth, and he can't hurt you like you think he can in a lot of situations. And greater is he that's within us than he that's in the world.
You know,
And
we
we tend to be
are
overcomers.
we are his extension. Meaning that I'll agree wholeheartedly that God, that we come to God to get, and he gets those parts. I'm with you. But we're the ones that hug. We're the ones that smile. We're the ones that embrace. We're the ones that engage. And we need to be those hearts that are open, so when
Yes,
people are willing to be vulnerable and open, that
absolutely.
we're there to support that. And that's an important part. And if
That's
we
the
don't,
love that I was talking about earlier.
that's it. And that has to be felt
In
from
that
people, has to
exact
be felt.
context.
And it starts small. I'm agreeing with you. It starts small. It starts with your wife, with you, with that, where I remember with Heather, with me, because I was married for 20 years before, and all that baggage. I'm going on 40. And so we had to talk, and I said, look, very early in this, I said, look, I'm not doing the dating games. I'm not interested in any of this. It's that I come with a bunch of baggage. Whether we talk about the analogy of dropping off your baggage, that kind of stuff, we still have a past. We still have stories, we still have things, da da da. So,
And
blah.
your haircutting tools.
Both of us, we were at a Lake Moultrie, right? We're up there at short stay, and we got together, and we just one day we literally just puked on each other and laid it all out. I said, well, might as well, because the trick was you could walk away and have no investment, right? Per se, right? But if you didn't walk away, you made the ultimate investment. Does that make sense? So we laid it out, and you. It sounds like you did the same thing with Dorothy, where you laid it.
We
Said,
did.
look, this is it.
We
I'm gonna
did.
lay it
We
out.
went on our first date on a Monday, and I
Yeah,
asked her to marry me on Sunday because every night in between we stayed up till 2 o'clock in the
yeah.
morning, and we went to places. We talked about things so deep. I knew her as good or deeper in 1 week than I did my first wife of 14
Yeah.
years of being with her.
Yeah,
So
and we dumped this out. Now we walk through that, and then we spend the next bunch of years living through that. In other words, there's still going to be, for lack of a better term, to give a visual. I want to give a visual to this, a like post traumatic. In other words, I'm still going to act sometimes in that baggage, and we need to then walk through that as we go. There's one thing to say it, the other part is then embracing it and then walking through it. And it's taken, you've been married for years, and yet now you're at the point here where this is now a topic, one, that you're willing to share, and two, that you're now willing to be the person open arms going, I get it, I
absolutely,
understand, and
absolutely,
yeah, and there's nothing you're going to say that's going to scare me. We talked about this last night in the men's group. I said there's three of us, you, me, and Joey, are three guys. There's nothing we can say to each other that's going to scare the other ones off. We're going to be beside you. We might cry with you,
yep,
and feel the pain with you, but we're not going anywhere. You're free to walk away. Each of us are free to walk away from the three, but the three as a whole are not gonna leave, right? That's fair to say.
mhm.
And not many people have
I know. I was just thinking that,
that
and
bond.
that,
And it
I,
starts small. I don't everybody needs to talk to and lay out your life soul secrets to 25 people.
right,
It starts with one,
right.
go to 3, go to 12, right? And then, and then if you feel the need to go there further. But
Hey, the Lord knew I needed to do it. I wasn't going to do it.
yeah,
He was the one that orchestrated, spoke to me to do it. I just simply obedient, and I'm so glad that I was. There are rewards to being obedient, and it's not easy sometimes, but that's just another confirmation that whatever the Lord tells us, and He's telling you, you can't deny that He's telling you. I could have easily slipped out of not doing it
right.
twice, easily.
Hmm.
Oh, it was real easy. I could have, you know,
Well, and
But I couldn't do it
but you
because I knew God told me to do it,
right.
and I had to do it. It was just He confirmed it over and over again in some amazing ways, which is a whole nother story.
Now,
But
you know how
I'm
we
so
have
glad, you know.
that thought of like it's going to be so hard, and after we do it, we go, "Oh, that wasn't that bad." Meaning we didn't
Exactly.
think that the deal. So, tell me with you, was it after you said it and didn't talk to the guy second? And if you go, there there wasn't rejection, there wasn't the deal. Was it looking back, the 2020 hindsight?
Yeah,
Was it easier than you thought it was going to be after you said? In other words, in the middle of it, you're still tight knuckled, white knuckled, tight chest. But after you look back, you go, I said it, and I looked them in the eyes. They're looking back at me,
yeah,
and they're hearing this, and we're interacting, and they're feeling this.
yeah. And and you know the thought. Well, I was so I mean, I was just so captivated by the response
Yeah,
that I didn't think about a lot of that too much.
yeah,
But when I did think about it, I would say, it was it made me think of the enemy, the adversary, in that he's just he's he really doesn't have that much power. He just doesn't. He's a weasel.
we give him
He
teeth.
fools us.
We love giving him
We're the
power.
ones that we're the ones that give him the power.
Yeah,
That James says, resist the devil and he'll flee from you.
yeah,
I think that I think there's some depth into that verse, and it doesn't just sound like the surface or what it sounds like on the surface.
yeah.
It's a more meaning to that. Um, and, uh, and the Lord tells us all the time not to be afraid, not to be afraid. And it gets right back again to what Mackie said about love is the key. Love is the key. There's no fear in love, you know. And the more we practice it, like you said, being there for people and um, loving people right where they're at, no
Yeah, we
matter
have to
what.
love them where they're at.
And
Yeah,
for me that's easy, maybe than others. I don't know, but I feel like it's easy to love people where they're at because I know how I felt. You know,
especially
so
now, because I'm not
especially now.
like not that you weren't a loving person before, and you'd cared about people before, and you genuinely cared about people before. You're at now. I don't know the phrase at another place. That's kind of a nebulous statement, but where there's almost like another depth layer to your to that point to where, because the thing is, you're like, well, I'll listen to yours, but I can't share mine. But your willingness to share says, hey, we can do this, and I can do this, and then we can share and do that, and then there's even more you have to give
Mhm.
in that love scenario, and they'll feel it. They will.
I know we only have a couple minutes left, so one thing I would like to do is encourage everybody. Uh, just I don't know how to put it in words. Just trust our Heavenly Father. Trust Him with everything. He's got you. He's He's crazy about us. He loves us so much. And isn't like Mackie said, isn't that the only thing that really really matters?
Yeah.
Who cares what other people think? You know, who really cares? It doesn't matter. And uh, so if some I can hear some people saying, well, you don't know what I've done in my life,
That's the typical
right?
phrase that comes from,
You don't know where I've been,
you don't know
brother.
what I've been, the things that I've done.
Well,
There's
I
songs
don't.
about that. Many been
I
written.
don't, but he does. And
Yeah.
he's allowed things in our life. He's allowed us to go down certain places. I was a prodigal son for 5 years, did my own thing. He allowed me to do that and didn't say a word to me for almost 5 years. And then one day said, you keep on going down this road, it's going to lead to destruction. Ooh, I don't want to do that. So I turned around. But he knows. He knows the details. He thinks about us in detail.
Yeah.
And he loves us so, so tremendously. So we can trust him. And that's, I could say so much more, but we're out of time. I just want to encourage people to trust him, because when we do that, that's what will help you open up more. Like Bob said, one-on-one, and then to maybe a few more, and then a few more, and wherever the Lord leads you. So
Yeah.
I'm excited about going even farther,
Right.
I am. If it means helping people and getting them to open up and be set free, whew, wow, I'm
Yeah.
all about it, brother. All about it. So
And I tell people, go find people that you can start with, the one-on-ones, the twos, the threes. Find those trustful people. Find them. And to be fair, be one. In other words, it goes both ways, right?
yes,
Be one. Be willing to accept somebody throwing up on you, and you're cool with it. Okay? And you're not going to judge. You're not going to look back and look. And that's hard sometimes. And you need to do that. And that is a God thing on the flip side. In other words, a God thing on the flip side. God, help me deal with this. Because sometimes you're looking in a mirror. Make no bones. The people that go throwing that, and then you realize, oh, crud. There's more of me in that muck that I'm trying to wash off than I care to admit. So, be willing to be that person in response. So, thanks for sharing, Tommy.
you're welcome.
I
Thanks
appreciate
for
it,
having me.
and encouraging people to say, hey, go out and do it, and try, and you'll find out it's easier than you think in the
Yeah,
in the in the story in the
and,
story.
and the and the Lord might change your name.
And the Lord might change your name. Now, get real quick because we have a few minutes. So why the change with Wilbe?
Okay, Wilby was my grandfather's name, so I'm the third. They named my grandfather after two uncles, and they combined William and Benjamin, and they came up with Wilby. And the only other place that I've ever heard it in my whole entire life was in the Walt Disney movie, The Shaggy Dog. The boy that had the shaggy dog was
Wilbe.
named Wilby. I think they spelled it with a Y, but mine's Wilbe.
Right.
So Tommy is a nickname. And I was nicknamed after my uncle nicknamed everybody, and he nicknamed me Tom Drooly, which was a takeoff after the song "Hang Down Your Head,
And
Tom Dooley."
Tom
Well, I was
Dooley.
Tom Drooly because as an infant I drooled all over myself. So somehow it came out to be Tommy, and by the time I was 6, and my mom said, "Well, your real name is Wilby," and I'm like, "No, it ain't. It's Tommy."
Right.
So because I never knew my father or my grandfather, Wilby didn't really mean anything to me.
Right.
Father's Day didn't mean anything to me. It was just stirred up bad feelings.
Right.
Never experienced a Father's Day until a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
That's another story. So anyway, after giving my testimony and going through that, some other amazing things took place, and the Lord started telling me, showing me the meaning of my name. Well, I knew the meaning of my name because my wife actually looked it up and gave it to me and showed me what the meaning of my name was
It says right
before I
here.
ever
Yeah.
did, because I really could care less. And it turns out that William means a strong-willed warrior, and Benjamin means son of my right hand,
Mm-hmm.
or a favorite son. So the Lord was just in a greater way giving me an identity that I've always longed for, and I started seeing that man that I never saw before.
Mm-hmm.
and it was amazing. In fact, I could say several more things of how he's just been, you know, um, really deeply revealing some things to me.
Right.
And so I've decided that when I meet new people, I'm going to introduce them with as my real name, Wilbe. So I've done that a couple of times. I've slipped up a couple of times too. I met a new friend a couple of weeks ago, and I meant to say Wilbe, but I introduced myself as Tommy still. Well, I've been doing that for 60 some years, so
Right.
it's a process.
Yeah.
But I'm so much more accepting of my real name than ever before. In fact, it's every time, like you've decided, I guess, to start calling me that, so that's fine. And anybody else that wants to, that's fine. If you still want to call me Tommy, that's fine. I have no problems. I'm not going to say, you got to call me Wilbe now, or I'm not going to be your friend anymore. No,
Yeah.
it's fine either way.
Yeah.
But I've accepted my name a whole lot more than I did in the past because I totally rejected it because it didn't mean anything.
Right.
But now it does.
Now it does.
And that's the miracle part of this, because
Yeah.
that's the miracle. And it was actually prophesied over me that there was going to be a miracle before this happened. And that's just a whole nother really cool story. But the miracle is what I just shared, that I know that man is in me. I see him.
Right.
I feel it. I know it. And I'm good, Doesn't mean there's still some struggles here and there. There's still the same. It's a process, but boy, is it different. Boy, is it different. I'll just give you one more little thing, and we can, if we need to shut this down,
We're fine.
whatever. I happened to just catch my eyes the very next day after I got back from the men's retreat. I was at my sister's house, and I just happened to catch my eyes in the mirror, and for whatever reason, I started staring into my own eyes. Sounds kind of weird, but I did for 3 to 5 minutes. I don't know how long, but I know it was a long time.
Right.
Why? Because I saw that man that I never saw before. I saw this warrior, this authentic man that I've always been, but couldn't see before.
Yeah.
But now I saw him. And I was just like, whoa, that's cool.
There he is.
So,
He's right there. Yeah.
So when you obey and just listen to the Lord and do what he says, you never know what awesome things he's got in store for you, and freedom is the biggest, and your identity is all tied with it. And the love that comes out of it has just been amazing. So,
There's my dad shared something with me that we're going through these, that when we go to help people walk through these things, my dad said, if we can catch it here, and then we're talking to the men, say the men's group that you're talking to, and we have different ages in that bracket, right? And if we can get them to start realizing this thought younger and younger and younger, then they won't get to this point of being 60 before they get this. That we can generationally walk it back. And so the willingness to share and do this and share is that the ripple effect that time at men's group will have generationally will be something to see down the road. We'll look back 20 years and see the ripple effect of the good that came from that. And there's a bunch of it we'll never see because we'll never be old enough to see how far out the pond those ripples go. But so the willingness to do that and share. So again, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it very much. And maybe we'll have another one and talk more about some different things and do this, and we can do it again at another time. So
sure. Thank you so much for having me. And
appreciate it, Tommy. Thanks.
Okay.
So, and as always, the updates, new episodes, new people, and anything you're gonna get the first deal. You're gonna get it on Twitter, and then of course it's gonna show up on the Facebook page, so you can see. I mean, that Facebook page on the web page to see. I'll do post on Facebook the links to the episodes each week too. Next week we have Follow Red String. We're continuing last week's chat with Jimmy. There were just so many other topics that we wanted to bring up on the broken bits, and so there was some more stuff we want to talk about. So we're going to continue it. It'll be part 2 with that, and then the week after that we'll pick him back up with our homework series that we need to roll with. Okay, now like I've said, we're ending on a poem. So this particular poem is written by my brother, but I think it's apropos for what we've talked about tonight. Quintus Cori. To repair with gold, the art of repairing pottery with gold or silver lacquer, and understanding that the piece is more beautiful for having been broken. And here's a poem from Jim Wern. You have taken what was broken, answered prayers of words unspoken, mended pieces that were shattered into someone new that mattered. Golden seams in broken places, filling in the empty spaces. With your love so all enfolding, healed my heart that you are holding. I'm beautifully broken. It's not wrong to be broken, people, because look what you can become. And thanks for being with us tonight on The Dusty Feet.